everyone, I'm Sam Lawrence and I work for Active Cornwall, and this is Play, Movement and Fun, supporting the social, emotional health and mental wellbeing of early years. It was designed to be delivered as a workshop within the EYFS annual conference, so it was originally designed for early years practitioners, but it can be used by anybody working with under fives and has been slightly adapted so I can deliver this in its online form. So first off, I'd like to present to you a question to have a think about. If you're in a group of people, have a discussion and pause the video. If not, just write it down or have a think to yourself. How many minutes of physical activity per day do you think tummy time for babies under 1? So how many minutes should a baby do tummy time when they're under 1 year old? Then how many minutes of physical activity should a child who is between the ages of 1 and 5 do per day? And how many minutes should a child do of moderate to vigorous activity when they're between the ages of 3 and 5? Do you know this? Now, when I deliver this in person, it's actually quite surprising the range of answers that we get. Some groups have already done training like this before, so they know the answers, others they don't. So if any of this surprises you, I encourage you to go away and do a little bit more research. And if you already know the answers to this, then hopefully this will just reinforce what you already know. So these guidelines that we're about to talk about are taken from the Chief Medical Officer Guidelines for Physical Activity. They are guidelines that have been designed for health professionals and policymakers and any professional to promote physical activity, sport and exercise for health benefits. And they draw on a range of evidence, and all the recommendations have to meet an evidence threshold before they're included. The latest updates were in 2019, but the latest information does show that actually, although there are recommended minutes of physical activity per day or per week, there's no minimum amount of physical activity required to achieve some health benefits. So the message is always some is better than none, more is better. So guidelines. The average level of physical activity actually reaches a lifetime peak around the age of 5, and then it declines as young people move into adulthood. So achieving high levels of physical activity in early years should help maintain high levels later on in childhood and establish healthy behaviours. So in reference to those previous questions, an infant under the age of 1 should be active several times a day. When they are not mobile, they should have at least 30 minutes of tummy time spread throughout the day while they're awake. Now that can be 1 minute at a time, even 10 seconds. It starts off small, not expecting a baby to do 30 minutes in one block. It's quite common for young children to be very uncomfortable with tummy time at first because they're not used to it. So tummy time can be achieved in many different ways. It doesn't have to be on the floor. It can be on mum's chest, it can be on a rolling ball, it can be on different surfaces to encourage different sensory experiences. It can be on your lap. Nationally, we know that not enough children are doing tummy time when they're younger, and this really establishes their base of their core strength and helps their back and neck muscles. Toddlers, so that 1 to 2 year old age, should be spending at least 180 minutes of physical activity throughout the day. And again, that could be any level of intensity. But when they reach 3 to 4 or in preschool, 60 minutes of that 180 minutes should be moderate to vigorous. So they should be a little bit out of breath. They should be a little bit red in the face, maybe a little bit sweaty. We also know nationally that not enough children are doing that moderate to vigorous level. They might be pottering around, they might be moving a lot, but they don't achieve that kind of moderate to vigorous intensity. The image here is the infographic from the guidelines, which can be downloaded off the government website, and it's just a visual representation of the guidelines. So one of the most important things to encourage anybody doing any physical activity interventions or embedding it in their services is to understand that the biggest driver for anybody to engage in physical activity, but especially children, is that it needs to be a positive experience and it needs to be fun. Sport England have done a lot of research around this, and They have demonstrated through their active life survey, although these don't go to under 5-year-olds, so I should caveat that, but they go from 5+. Their evidence show that actually activity levels compared to about 12 months ago remain consistent. On the whole, they have improved over the last, say, 5 to 6 years, but compared to last year, they're very, very similar. Physical literacy, when they measure positive attitudes to movement and positive attitudes to sport, is getting better, but it is comparatively down compared to 5-6 years ago, so pre-COVID. And there is continually a positive association between those children who are more physically active and the impact that has on their mental well-being. So the more physically active children tend to be happier and more satisfied with life. So positive experiences at a really early age help build that foundation for an active life. And if all of their experiences, regardless of whether they're going to a baby club, whether they're going to gymnastics, whether they're playing at home with their parents or their siblings, or they're in the park, if all of those experiences are fun and positive and build confidence, then they're more likely to be active in the future. And that's why positive attitudes for children and young people is one of the 5 big issues for Sports England. We also know that physically literate children, so those who have the confidence, competence and motivation to be active, are more active for the rest of their life, as opposed to those children who are less confident, less motivated and less competent. So I just wanted to show this little video. So I just wanted to show that video because it kind of clearly explains the benefits, which we'll talk a little bit later. But you've heard the term physical literacy a few times, and it might not be a term that you're very familiar with. But physical literacy is our relationship with movement and physical activity throughout our lives. And it does change. The basic premise is that if we have the skills, knowledge and motivation to move, then we're more likely to be active. But as it changes throughout our life, it is established at the earliest stages. So if a child wants to move, so that's their motivation, if they know they can move, which is their confidence, and they have the physical skills, which is their competence, and they understand the value of moving, so they know why they need to do it, then they're more likely to engage in physical activity. So Sports England have pulled together a physical literacy consensus statement so that all key partners working in this area have the same understanding of what physical literacy means. And this is what this is. So this is just a visual representation and a bit more information breaking that definition down. So physical literacy is our relationship with movement and physical activity throughout life. It is available on the Sports England website. With regards to positive attitudes, as I said, Sports England have done a lot of research on this, mainly from the 5 age plus. But all their research shows that the more physically literate children and young people are happier. They're more likely to keep trying until they can do something, so they're more likely to be more resilient, and they're more likely to trust other people. So the more positive attitudes they have, all of that goes up. So the happier they are, the more resilient they are, the more trusting they are. But can you assess physical literacy? So you can assess physical development, gross motor skills, fine motor skills. You can assess levels of physical activity, how many minutes somebody does, but can you assess somebody's relationship with movement? Well, the Youth Sport Trust have developed this physical literacy assessment statements and physical literacy framework to support early years professionals to try and help kind of assess physical literacy within their children. So it helps support an enabling environment, specifically targeting these areas. And you can download it there off the Youth Sport Trust website for free. They also have these assessment statements, which have been structured around key movement areas, and they have 4 levels. So they start from kind of the basic level and they go up. So for example, it will assess things like moving objects. Can a child move an object from one hand to another? Can a child then move an object from one hand to another around their body? Can they do it while they're moving? So all of those build skills. So you can maybe see a child and see where they sit on this framework and see what it is that you need to do in order to build their competence and therefore help increase their confidence. If you're asking a child to go on a scooter, for example, and they can't balance on one leg, simply asking them to repeatedly go on that scooter over and over again is not necessarily going to help build their confidence. Whereas doing other exercises that help with their core stability and their balance, and then re-engaging them with a scooter might be a more beneficial way of doing it. And this framework helps you to observe children and to see where they need that extra support. So physical activity is defined as any voluntary bodily movement that requires energy performed at any intensity level. So that can include low intensity, moderate and vigorous, so it's anything. But it can be for fun, it can be for actively traveling, it can be part of a structured activity, it can be free play, organised sport. Physical activity includes all of those things. So for very young children, so you're talking maybe 4 or 5 month old children, anyone under the age of 1, physical activity includes voluntary movement as reaching, grasping, moving the head, rolling on the floor. So it doesn't include riding a bike, but that is physical activity for a really young child. Tummy time, squatting, bum shuffling, all of those things. And it's really important to have a range of activities, adult-led and child-led, because all of them play a part in that development and that learning. So if you are part of an earlier setting or you're part of a volunteer organisation that supports stay and plays or anything like that, planning your activities around having adult-led and child-led activities can be very beneficial. And it's important to consider how those activities develop those physical skills. It's also important about having an enabling environment that enables movement so children can move in different ways throughout that space. So how many times have you seen a classroom, for example, that has minimal movement space and everything is in the way? So the only way a child can move is walking. There's no room for them to run, there's no room for them to throw, there's no room for them to dance. That is not an environment that enables different types of movement. That restricts movement. So can your items in your classroom be moved around? Are you able to move them? Can you reconfigure your room? Do you need chairs? Can't you use balance boards? Or, you know, do you need a child to sit on a chair all of the time? So think about, does your environment actually enable movement? So for the youngest children, your face and your social interaction is their biggest influence. So adult-led activities during this time are really important. So baby wearing, that one-on-one focus, and then tummy time can easily be done on an adult rather than just on the floor if a child needs that extra support. So as the child gets older, there's lots of skills, knowledge and vocabulary that you can pass on as an adult. And they need an adult to engage with them to learn all of this, so they won't learn it on their own. So that's why adult-led activities can be really beneficial. And you can also obviously respond to that child and assess where they're at and help them and extend it. So you can introduce new physical skills through your adult-led activities, and you can use new vocabulary to help them understand the context of what you're doing. But then it's really important to have that child-led space. And sometimes they'll play with other children, sometimes they'll play on their own, sometimes they may take an adult-led activity and take it somewhere else, and they'll extend it by themselves in their free time. But it gives them time to explore and the freedom to do what interests them. So it gives them control over their own decisions and their choices. So different types of activities, all children tend to demonstrate a similar behaviour pattern. They might do it at different stages, but they tend to follow the same pattern. So they tend to like things that bounce, water moving, rolls, things that spin and make a circular movement, filling and emptying things, pushing things, covering, uncovering, hiding, stacking, climbing. So if any physical activities involve those things, genuinely it may inspire more engagement from the children because naturally they are inclined to lean towards these activities. So one example I have, and I will attach this to somewhere on the webpage, is physical active maths. So this was developed on request by some early year settings, and it was around incorporating the mathematics topic with movement. So this is Pirate Treasure, and it includes other active maths prompts and other active maths ideas. So it was designed for more the preschool age, but I have incorporated some other ideas for younger children and how to differentiate for ages and stages. So give it a go, have a read, give it a go, see what you think. I've had really good feedback that children really enjoy this activity. So see what you think in your space. One thing to reiterate around this is that everything is linked. So you probably already know this, so I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but we know that a child's physical, cognitive, linguistic and emotional development are all linked, and it's very hard to separate them. They might develop in different areas at different stages, but all development affects other areas. So for 5 minutes, I'd like you to pause this video and I'd like you to discuss with your colleagues or write it down or have a think to yourself, how can you close the gap for those children who disengage from movement? What would you do and what would you recommend? Pause now and take 5 minutes to do this activity. Okay. Now, usually in a group environment, we would discuss the outcomes of this question. And one of the things that I noticed delivering this to 80, 90 professionals is that one of the things that tended to be missing was engagement with the wider family. So most of the time the answers were engage with what the children liked, what are their likes, what are their dislikes, use music, use different activities, go to different places, all really, really great ideas. But one of the things that was consistently missing that I noticed was engagement with the wider family. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So Sport England Insight tells us that families, and particularly parents, and primary caregivers play a key role in shaping a child's attitude and behaviour. And there has been some research that demonstrates for every minute of moderate to vigorous activity mum does, the primary caregiver, mainly mum, her child is more likely to engage in 10% more of the same level of physical activity. And if I was to say to you that mum only needs to do 150 minutes of physical activity per week, but her child needs to do 3 hours per day, you can see how important it is that mum is physically active as well. So children's development is enhanced in contexts where they experience emotional warmth and security, which you guys already know. So feeling of being in control in those activities and feeling positive experiences and challenges in a playful, sensitive way can provide really good conditions for children to thrive. So this is when we're going to talk about maternal mental health. So 1 in 5 women develop maternal mental health problems during pregnancy or for the first year after childbirth, but only 7% of women who experience these are referred to specialist care. 1 in 8 of their partners will also experience mental health problems, and most of them receive no support. Out of the 7% who get referred to specialist care, 38% wait over 4 weeks, with some waiting up to a year. And this information has been taken from the Royal College of Gynecology and Obstetrician Gynecology. A mum's postnatal depression and anxiety from conception through to the baby's first year of life is associated with negative development outcomes. So a mum experiencing mental health problems is less likely to engage in their baby. They are less likely to pick up on their baby's cues as fast as maybe somebody who isn't suffering from mental health problems could do. And this creates added stress for baby, and it affects their attachment and their bonding. So that parent-infant relationship is one of the most significant environmental factors on early brain development. And studies have shown that babies of depressed mums have reduced joy, reduced interest, and increased anger. So that emotional environment causes that child to feel stressed and unsafe and fearful, and that reflects in how the brain is developed and how that child deals with stress and emotionally regulates later in life. So that's why it's really important to engage with the wider family, especially birth mum. So physical activity for mum can really support a mum's mental health. So evidence shows it can improve their mood. It reduces worry and depression. It improves their sleep. It improves their fitness and strength. And again, they should be aiming for 150 minutes per week, but some is better than none. And one thing that I always advocate for around physical activity is you don't need a diagnosis of a mental health condition to move more. It is for anybody who's got a healthy pregnancy or no physical problems with their pelvic health or their abs, and that haven't been sorted by a physiotherapist, if they are healthy, the benefits outweigh the risk. So you do not need to be diagnosed with PTSD, OCD, depression to just move more. So another question, I'd like you to pause the video again and then discuss in your groups or write it down or have a think to yourself, how is movement and play linked to emotional and mental well-being? How is it linked? You have 5 minutes. Pause now. Okay. So when I've done this in person, again, most people know the generalized ways that it's linked. So we're going to talk about those specifically around child development. So the benefits of movement and play on well-being for a child. So it boosts brain power, it enhances academic learning, it alleviates mood and reduces anxiety. You remember some of the things that were said in that video earlier. It improves social skills, enhances creativity, helps maintain mental health and emotional well-being. And these have all been proven by studies, and that's why they're included in the CMO guidelines. This image I love to share because this is the brain scan of 2 children. I think they were in their early teens at the time, both taking a test. Now the first child was sat for 20 minutes and then took a test, And then the other child went for a walk for 20 minutes and sat the same test. And this is the brain scan of what was going on in their brains while they were taking that test. And you can see the lower brain activity in the child that was sat versus the higher brain activity in the child that was walking. So there's more blood flow, more oxygen going to the brain, so their brain is more active. Now, for a really, really young child, when we're looking at trying to develop brain cells and get the brain sparking and develop neurons, it's really important to get that blood flowing through the brain to help support brain performance and brain development. So physical activity also increases a protein which improves focus, concentration and decision making. So this has a real positive impact on a child's motivation, learning and productivity, because if they can focus, concentrate and make better decisions, it really helps build their motivation. So this is really important for any child who is showing signs of being neurodivergent. So any child who's showing signs of being on the autism spectrum or ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, it really helps build the protein and the blood flow to the brain to help improve focus and concentration. So I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever worked with a child, if you have worked with a child with ADHD, and I know that the inclusion EYFS inclusion service will recommend this as well. I've had Dilys say this. You have a child and you do some physical activity, especially muscle strength or something where they have to really use their muscles to really get their heart going, to really build power, to really, do some work, physical work, then get them to focus and sit down for 20 minutes to read a book or do something, to do their writing or to do their reading. It can really help get all their wiggles out, get everything out, and then they can sit and focus. So the other side of exercise or physical activity is that release of the endorphins and that feel-good hormone to make them happy and lift their mood. So they will experience a reduction in stress and anxiety when they engage in physical activity and help reduce all of their stress, which can help them feel happier. And if you think about the children that have mums with signs of depression, they will be living in a stressful environment. So it's really important to help them manage their stress levels, and physical activity can really help them do that. It also helps build their self-esteem, which is another reason why they might be happier. Another thing that it does is help spark creative juices and help problem solving. So I don't know about you, but how many times you've been at work and you've got a problem to solve and your brain's gone, bit foggy, bit tired, late in the afternoon on Friday, not the best time to be solving a problem. Park it, go for a walk, go make a cup of tea, dance in the kitchen, then come back and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I can see things a bit differently now. That helps. It's that break and that burst of movement can help with creative thinking, enhance imagination and help with problem solving. And obviously it goes without saying that the earlier we start with good, healthy behaviours, the more likely that child will develop healthy behaviours as they grow up. So it's really important to establish that behaviour, that kind of health creation, rather than trying to change their behaviour when they get older. So it has that immediate effect, but it also has long-term mental and well-being benefits. And if a child learns that if they are active and it makes them happy, helps reduce stress, that's a tool in their toolbox they can use when they get older. So when they've got conflicts or they are struggling when they get older, they get to the teens, they can fall back on this. I know that if I'm active, I will be happier, I'll be able to do better in my exams, I will feel less stressed, and it is a tool that they can go to throughout the rest of their life. So this is from the Active Lives survey results from Sport England, and it's just to demonstrate that positive association between levels of engagement in sport and physical activity and levels of mental well-being. So children and young people between the ages of 5 and 18, those that engage in more movement and physical activity, and even those that volunteer in sport, they report feeling happier. And they're part of the happiness scores, they have fallen compared to 5 years ago, so pre-COVID, they are lower. Girls have been significantly impacted by that, and also the age range of children that are transitioning to secondary school, as well as those from ethnic minority groups. So the long-term impact of being physically active, so we know that physically active children are less likely to be obese. They have higher test scores. There's less chance of engaging in risk-taking behaviours such as smoking and drug use and teen pregnancy. More likely to go to college, more likely to have a higher wage, lower health costs, more productive, more focused, less long-term health conditions. And then if they become a parent, they are more likely to be active parents, and the cycle continues. So it can also be said for the reverse. So inactive and more sedentary parents have more sedentary children, and those sedentary children are more likely to be obese, are more likely to have lower test scores, are more likely to engage in risk-taking behaviour, less likely to go to college, more likely to have lower wages, more likely to have higher health costs, have long-term health conditions, and then when they become a parent, they are more likely to have sedentary children. So what I would like you to do going away from this is have a think. I don't know which environment you've come from, and I appreciate your time today, and I would love to have done this in person, but hopefully you've got something out of it. I want you to go and review your environment and your curriculum or your activities and the environment in which you do it, and have a think. Have you enabled all of your children to be active in a variety of ways that are fun, positive, and suitable for their needs? So having a recap, does your environment help those with special educational needs, for example, to move in a variety of ways that help build their confidence, as well as the other children who are maybe more active, who already go to sports clubs, or the ones that don't, and they live in a flat and they don't even have access to stairs? Like, what can you do in your environment that makes sure you enable all children to move in a way that's fun for them and suitable? Then review your engagement with families. So do you engage with families with their child's physical literacy and physical activity? Do you talk to them about it? Do you educate them? Do you do stay and plays? Do you encourage them to come in with the children, or do you just focus on the child? Do you talk to them? Do you understand how much physical activity mum does? Do you understand whether parents have got mental health difficulties? Can you support them with that? What do you currently do, and what do you think you could do better? So sign up for future training. So there are a range of training opportunities available. There is Healthy Movers available from the YST directly on their website. There is other webinars and training available on the Active Cornwall workshop and courses area for early years. So have a look and see if there's anything more suitable, and to enhance your knowledge and share with your colleagues. Sign up to the Moving Matters Early Years newsletter. So if that is being sent out, sign up and receive updates directly. And then join the private Facebook group. That's full of professionals who work in this area who want to embed physical activity in their service. So sign up, get chatting, learn in that private group. And then explore activity options that you can include in your groups or your settings or your work. Have a try, have a play, do something different. Ask the children what they like to do. Get them to come up with games. Include the pirate treasure idea. Include some of the ideas that you thought of in those 5-minute questions. And after your 2 reviews of your environment, curriculum and engagement, have a think about what else you could do. I'm going to link some on activity ideas and all the resources that are available. So have a go away, have a look at those posters, those videos, have a look at the link tree, all the face-to-face groups, online activities for free, and see if anything sparks your interest that you might want to include. And that is it for today. So I hope you can take away something from this. Please share it, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.